one of the imams, uh, Sheikh Yasser Bajaz, they're at El Paso Masjid. I mean, I was back in, I don't know, mid 2000s. I had visited him over there. Was teaching over here a little bit, but anyhow, so I don't know how many masajids are there. Did you become Muslim in Texas or?
I was in Las Cruces.
All right, we are ready, inshallah, to start. Okay. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So we're going to continue today, inshallah, with our Arabic class, and in particular, I want to try to focus as much today as on just doing reading and then kind of interrupting the process to go over either like sort of grammar and vocabulary and that kind of thing. But as the title of the class, right, al-Qāri, al-ʿArabī, right, the Arabic reader is to focus on reading. And so that will really be two areas, will be the facility at being able to read, right, which is, I've said before, is like a muscle memory kind of thing. And then additionally, it will be obviously comprehension. And so I want us to have as much of that experience as possible reading out loud. So my main request to everybody is that when you speak, just speak up. Because I've noticed a tendency that when I ask somebody to speak, you know, they kind of whisper. And so we gotta be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We've gotta be comfortable with embarrassing ourselves. And so let's be reckless. You know, let's just go all out and be reckless, inshallah. Okay, so I'm gonna just dive right in to the Risala of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. So if you want to, I just printed that out for both Ishaq and Hassan, Hussein. So we should have those for them. And then you guys, if you want to, actually just take a quick peek, because I think both Robert and Dawood were here last week. So you guys should, I think, have the most up-to-date version of that document. Also, and let's see, that document should be, let's see here, should be a total of 13 pages, right? So it should begin the first page that says, Ar-Risalatu li Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, and then the very last page should end at the top where it says Al-Azim, and then footnote 27, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. So as long as the first page looks like that and the last page begins with the word Al-Azim, then you have the right copy. If you don't have that, again, it should be 13 pages, then you want to have me print it out for you. So I don't know, Rob, if you got like the okay. Do I need to print out one more for him? Or do you have a 13-page? Do you also have the 13-page updated document? Okay, so here, let me print out two more.
Oh, hold on, let me check.
Okay, all right.
Is it all the same text?
No, so this particular document, I mean, it's fine that you have the text to reference, although obviously it's got the translation, so it's kind of cheating. And it has all of the harakat. This has been denuded, right? This has been denuded of all of the harakat. That's the point, right? And so it also has a section on vocabulary, right? So once you get to page 7 of that document, at the beginning, at the top of page 7, it says what al-mufradat al-af'alu tujaru fi risala. And so, do I need to print out any more?
You're saying of the Risala you had vocab too?
I had vocab, so I'm saying altogether it should be 13 pages.
Yeah, we probably have them all. We're just all separate.
Okay.
So you had this one with we were focused on verbs.
Yeah, I mean, I could print out 2 more copies just to make sure we have it, because I don't want to make, if you guys got them mixed up or if they got separated. Here, I'll print out 2 more just to be sure. I'll print out 2 more just to be sure. So that way also you guys can staple it and it's in the order, right? So that's the other thing. It'll be a little bit confusing because I'll be updating sometimes these documents throughout the week. And so we'll just print out a new version. I mean, obviously if you have a tablet, you can just download the latest version and you can work off of it there. But no, this is actually just on the website right now. On the Middle Ground website, right? So if you go to muslim.center/the-Arabic-reader, right, that link, that has all of the latest PDF files, it has all the latest audio files, and everything that's done like from session to session. So all that will be updated there. From somewhere he shouldn't have. He got that book. You shouldn't have that book, man. See, look at that. Brother came to the class cheating, man. You ain't supposed to have that book. Yeah. We actually read that book. Yeah.
And it doesn't have the
Oh, it doesn't?
No, but it does have the translation. That's why I bought it, because it has
Oh, okay. So it has the translation, but without the harakat. So as I said before, the Risala is a work that, became very popular amongst the Muslims and has been read, profusely. And so it has made its way into English translations. And so because it was a document that was written initially for a younger audience, like Ibn Abi Zayd, rahimahullah, he wrote the document actually for younger people in mind. And so as we read through, we'll actually see that in his intro, he states that explicitly. And so most versions of the Risala that you will find, even in the Arabic, will tend to have the harakat. They'll have the vowel markings to aid people that are not as adept at reading the Arabic. But obviously, for the purposes of this class, one of the things I also want to work on is getting us away from the need to have the vowel markings. And so that's why I'm giving you specifically these copies that have no vowel markings on them.
Goes with the Risala.
Ah, that's the way. These two.
Right.
Not this one is not.
Okay, great.
So is this just in addition to the original copy that you gave us? So it's the original copy, then this.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. There will be versions. In fact, I'll try to maybe do that going forward. But right now, maybe just write today's date on it so that you know what version of what document that we have. So that way you can always tell you have the most updated version, or you know what version that you're working with, inshallah. All right, so are we all good? We've got all of our versions. Everybody's good. Got that copy in front of you? Okay. All right.
How many pages?
Should be 13. I printed out a version for both you and. Did you get shorted one?
The last page is.
But are you counting for the Risala? Are you counting both sides?
Yeah, that's 2, 4, 5.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, here, I think. So, here, why don't you bring me your. You're good? Okay. I'm going to print out one more copy because Ruh just walked in and he'll need the most updated version too. If you want to do me a favor, Ruh. Oh, you have one? Okay, he's got one for you. All right, good. All right. Okay. Just so everybody has the updated version. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. Inshallah.
Oh, okay.
So who, you know what? Forget that. I'm no longer going to go with who wants to be. I'm just going to, like a true serial killer in the tariqah of Michael Myers, I will pick my own victim myself. Let's bring up, everybody can see they're online. So, okay, we're going to read, starting from the very first page. Let's start with the word muqaddimah. And I just want you to read from the word muqaddimah, the first paragraph beginning with qala, and then the second paragraph that ends with aziman, and we'll just start with Dawood. So muqaddimah, right? Yep, Abu. Abdu. Abdu. Zaydin. Al. Al-Qāri, right? Because his name is, as we see in English, right? His name is what? Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. Al-Qayrawaniyu. Radiyah. Radiyallahu عنه رضي الله عنه و وأرضاه. Good.
Oh, keep going.
Yeah, and then Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alladhi. Alladhi. So that word, there is actually there's a shadda there. Alladhi. Alladhi.
Abda.
Ibba.
Ibba. I'm lost. Where are we at now? Okay.
So go back to Alhamdulillah. Alladhi.
Ibba.
Yep. There's a sukoon on the ba. Ibba tada'a.
La. Or la. La dal.
So ابتدأ الإنسان الإنسان. And we'll get into the reason of why is it insana versus insano, but insana. بنعمته بنعمته. وصوره وصوره. في الأرحام. Right, so instead of saying في الأرحام, right, في الأرحام. في الأرحام, right, في الأرحام. بنعمته. Right, so we have what? في الأرحام. I'm sorry. في الأرحام بحكمته. Right? حكمة بحكمته. According to his hikmah. حكمته.
Okay.
Uh-huh. B, yeah, very good, right? Oh, I'm sorry, no, wow. وأبرزه. Sorry, right? أبرزه. وأبرزه إلى. Right? So what? بحكمته وأبرزه إلى رفقه. وما Well, what's the first letter? No, 2 dots below. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And then the second letter is a sin with a shadda. So yas. And then the third letter is a ra. So yassara. وما يسر له Right. Min. No, that's a zay. So ra, zay, qaf. What do we call that? What does Allah provide for us? Our rizq. Right. So min rizqihi. From his rizq. وعلمه وعلمه ما لم يكن ما لم يكن يعلم وكان that's not fi but fa dod lam. When somebody is blessed by Allah, they have yes, very good, right? وكان, but we have an idafa. So كان فضل Allah, فضل الله. وكان فضل الله عليه عظيما عظيما. Very good. Okay. Okay, Ruh, the second paragraph, beginning with وَنَبَّهَهُ. Not bil, there's no alif lam, but the harf jar connects, right? Bi-atha. Sun. Yes, san'atihi. So it's fi sigat al-madi. It's a past tense. So all of the harakat are fatha except for the ayn, which is sukun. Yep. Al-sinat. Right. So not as sana. It's not. The word isn't the year. It's actually the plural of lisan. Right. So the word lisan, right, its plural is el-sina. El-sina. Right? So our word lisan, jam'uhu el-sina. 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 جمعه ألسنة. So وأعذر إليه على Yeah, right. على ألسنة المرسلين. So this one also is a somewhat unusual plural. So the word خير, what does the word خير mean? Right. وجمعه خيارا. خيارا. وأعذر إليه على ألسنة المرسلين الخيرة. Good. من خلقه. Right. Men. Right. Meaning who? Right. But there's a shadda on the fa. So, right. من وفقه بفضله. Right. Men. Right. Men خذله. No, you were right. So the word is not min from, but it is men, meaning who. Right? So, and وَأَضَلَّ, who is doing the misguiding? أَضَلَّ means to misguide. Right? أَضَلَّ, this is a verb, right? فعل. And it is what? بُنِيَ على الوزن أفعل مثل أسلم أو أحسن. So I'm also going to try to explain things to you in Arabic a little bit just to build up your listening. So أضل, we know what غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Allah says about the people of the book, not those that enticed Allah's anger, or those who were what? ضالون. What is ضالون? Astray. So astray is a, like, especially what الضالين. We do, right? At الضالين. Right? What kind of word is this? We have three kinds. We have what? Ism, fi'l, harf, right? Exactly. This is ism. It just happens to be what? Jama'. It's a plural, right? So that's describing somebody that is already misguided. But what if you want to misguide somebody? What if we want to flip it and talk about the action of misguiding? To cause something or someone to be misguided. This form, af'ala, is often a causative, or also I like to kind of call a transformative. I know the first five letters of that can be controversial, but right? So af'ala, when things are built upon, when I say what? أضل هو فعل بني على الوزن أفعل. What? The verb أضل is بني. What do I mean by بني? Have you heard the hadith? بني الإسلام على خمس. What is this hadith? Anybody? And speak up so everybody can hear you. Say again. But what is the foundation? Islam, right? Buniya al-Islam ala khams, right? Khamsatu ashya, right? Islam is built upon 5 foundational principles. My point is that many of us will have heard either in Arabic or in English this hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so in grammar, in nahu, we have a concept of bina, right? Bina, meaning what? Construction. So verbs, nouns are constructed, right? So when I say buniya, the literal meaning is has been. It's a passive voicing. Buniya, like when you see the word qila versus qala, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. And when it is said to them, don't cause fasad, don't cause chaos or corruption in the earth. We know this from Surah Al-Baqarah, right? So the verb is qila versus qala. Like we say qala Imam Ali radiyallahu blah, 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 right? Imam Ali said this. So qala is he said, qila it has been said, right? That's the passive voice. So when we say buniya, means what? It's a verb that has been constructed. Ala al-wazn. What's the wazn? No, but what does the word al-wazn mean? The form, right? So in sarf, in morphology, we talk about the awzan, which is the plural of wazn. There's forms. And so what you do is, in Arabic, in grammar, we like to use these 3 letters. We like to use fa, ayn, and lam as the 3, you could say, template letters. And so when we're talking about forms and we're talking about constructions, we will often use a template to demonstrate what the template or the form is by using these 3 letters so that we can identify what are the huruf asliya, right? Do we understand, right? We have what we call huruf asliya. Huruf is jam'u ma. What is huruf the plural of? Harf. Harf. Harf wa jam'uhu huruf. Right? And so as we said, depending on the context, harf can be just a letter, like alif, ba, ta, or it can have also a ma'na nahwi. It can have a grammatical meaning of like a particle, what we would call in English. But in an Arabic word, we want to be able to identify what are the essential letters associated with the meaning of which the rest of the word is constructed upon. A simple example would be the word masjid. Masjid. What are the essential letters in the word masjid that tell us what the essential root meaning is? Right. Sin, Jim, and Dal. Now, if we wanted to study this particular form of masjid, then what we would want to do is say, okay, we're going to study the form of maf'il. So we would say, al-masjid buniya ala al-wazni, right? Maf'il. Right? Masjid buniya ala al-wazni maf'il. Right? So we use fa, ayn, and lam. That's what we use as our kind of like letters we put in the lab to do tests with and to play around with so that we can talk about particular constructions, that's what we're getting to. So in this case, we say what? أضل بني على الوزن أفعل. That the verb أضل is built upon أفعل. Now, what are the essential root letters of أضل? Exactly, right? So in this case, right, if we have our verb أضل, the essential root letters are dal and lam, except the lam will be counted twice. So it is dallala. There are some traditional Arabic dictionaries. The Hansver is not one of them. Hansver dictionary, while useful, it is meant for an English audience, and it is not what we call like a classical dictionary by any means whatsoever. And so the classical dictionaries, if you wanted to look up a meaning of something alphabetically, you would look up dal and lam, but they may actually list it at the very beginning as what? Dal, lam, lam. And so because this letter repeats twice in the wazn of fa'ala, right? On the construction of fa'ala, which is like the most kind of basic past tense verb, like darasa, kataba, sajada, right? Those kinds of things. Then, in order to construct dallala on the wazn of fa'ala, we actually have to make it what? Dalla, right? Dalla. Now, there will be other instances where there will be dallala and then yudallilu, and we'll get into that later. So when we look at the word adalla, we can already say, okay, if it's bunya ala al-wazni af'ala, the alif with a hamza at the beginning, it's what we call harf za'id. You know, za'id, zada, what does zada mean? Zada means to increase, right? Zada, Rabbi, or Rabbi, zidni, Rabbi zidni ilman. Oh Allah, raise me in knowledge. Rabbi zidni ilman. You may hear this sometimes in the dua, or Rabbana zidna ilman. Oh Allah, increase us in knowledge, right? So, in this case, the word is zid. The waw in the middle will go away, and we'll get into that later on. But my point is that there are essential letters, what we call like the huruf asliya, which are going to be dalla, dad, and lam, and then there are those that are not. And so, by being able to identify the core letters and being able to identify the additional letters, that will tell us what kind of construction is this. And there are meanings associated with those constructions, just like masjid. And so when we say that there's meanings, it's built on the form of maf'il. So we said the essential, like the huruf asliya, are sin, jim, and dal. So we know that that generally means something associated with prostrating. In the form of maf'il, right, this is what we are going to call a masdar makani, or masdar makan. It is a verbal noun, right? Masdar means what? A verbal noun, but the meme also is associated with what? Makan, a place. So maf'il is masdar makan, or masdar makani, and therefore it is associated with a place. So other things that have a, let's say, maktab. Maktab. The difference here, this is a kasra, here is a fatha. Very similar construction though. Maktab bunya ala al-wazni, what? Maf'al. And so maktab is the place where what happens? No. What is katab? What are the essential letters of maktab? Right. And what does kataba mean? To write. So it's the place where some writing has taken place. Or a library, right? Because there's a bunch of books in it. And so the meaning is what? It's a place where writing has taken place. And so we'll get into some of those differences. But this is part of the importance of understanding both the grammatical constructions and then also the morphological constructions. Okay. We left off at where? Where did we leave off at? Okay, so we left off with وَأَضَلَّ مَنْ خَذَلَهُ. وَيَسَّرَ. See, now this time, I did not put the shadda. If you go back to, if you go back to the second paragraph, in the second sentence of the second paragraph begins with Alhamdulillah. In the second sentence, we have what? وَأَبْرَزَهُ إِلَى رِفْقِهِ وَمَا يَسَّرَ لَهُ. It is the same verb again as the last word on the first page, right? In the wa yassara. So once we learn something, I'm not going to always repeat it again, because again, you will know if it's yasiru or yassara. Eventually you will build up the understanding through context. So wa yassara, and then turn the page. What is it? Lil yusra. What is yusra? Yes, yusra. And let's talk a little bit about this word. Yusra. So we have, what are the essential letters in this word? ما هي الحروف الأصلية في يسرى. And I'm saying because it's a little bit of a trick question. What do you think are the essential letters of yusra? No. I'll give you a clue. If we go back, there's a relation. So the sentence reads, وَيَسَّرَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ لِلْيُسْرَى. So, وَيَسَّرَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ لِلْيُسْرَى. And I apologize for writing sideways. This word, this verb, and this noun share the same root. Yes. The essential letters are ya, sin, and ra, and that's why we see ya, sin, and ra here, and ya, sin, and ra here. Right? Ya, sin, and ra. هذه الحروف الأصلية. وما معنى يسرى? He already told us that yusra means what? Ease. Yassara means what? To make something easy. Right? So often on this wazn, so we have another wazn here. on this wazn, we have the wazn of fa'ala. And its mudari', its present tense is what? Yufa'ilu. Fa'ala yufa'ilu. There are two primary meanings of this wazn. One, causative, make something happen, make somebody do something, or intensification, right? Intensification. Does anybody know the word or the verb darasa? What does darasa mean? To study. If darasa means to study, and I want to make it causative, and I then construct it on the wazn of fa'ala, what do I get? Darasa bunya ala al-wazn, what? Fa'ala. Now, let's, right, لنبدي الوزن فعل مع الفعل درس. Let's now construct darasa on the same wazn of fa'ala. Darasa, right, was the shadda on the ra, on the middle, right, the middle letter, right, the ayn takes the shadda. So, darasa. Like alima, what is alima? What do you get by doing alima? You get ilm. So alima means to know. Allama as a causative means what? Right, no, not to make known, to make somebody else know. So darasa means to study, على الوزن فعل. ولكن على الوزن فعل al-ma'na darasa, make somebody else study. This is what I'm doing to y'all right now. I'm making y'all study. That's why I am the mudarris, and you guys are the mudarrasun. Right? I am the mudarris. I am the one that is actively making y'all do dirasa. And because y'all are my unwitting victims, you are the mudarras, right? So darasa becomes darasa, of which we get the mudarris and the mudarras. Study, teach. You try to write sideways. Teacher. I'm sorry. Yeah, teacher, and you could say student, although this is obviously a very bizarre inflection. Actually, mudarras means instructed. Right? Kana al-talib mudarrasan jayyidan. The student was well instructed, or the student was instructed well. So in that case, if you just want to say he's a student, you'd say talib. But if I wanted to describe what kind of student he is or she is, right? كانت الطالبة مدرسة جيدة. She was well instructed, right? So this is what we call the passive participle, or meaning the one that has passively received the action, and so it's talked about in a passive way. This is the active one that is doing the act. So if the act is foundationally to study, then the causative meaning would be to cause somebody else to study or to teach. Likewise, like darasa, allama, because these are rooted in what you would call, I guess you could call it like a transitive verb, meaning that the action has to transfer to some type of object, right? But then what about, we said we have causative, or causative, but we also have intensification. That's also a potential that we get when we have this kind of word. So let's take a verb, for instance, like kasara. What does kasara mean? To break. Right. But that's good. What's the verb for to hit? Great. So we have kasara, daraba. Perfect. In the wazn of fa'ala, kasara means to break, daraba means to hit. But now, if we want to, inshallah, make the wazn of fa'ala, let's take fa'ala and construct kasara. What do we get? Kasara. So if it's intensifying, we go from breaking to shattering, right? Yes. Now let's take daraba, which means to hit. Let's, inshallah, let's build this wazn of fa'ala ala daraba. What do we get? Right, daraba. And so if daraba means to hit, what does daraba mean? Yeah, like to just like KO. Right? And so when you will know that it is causative and when you will know that it's intensive, will have a lot to do with the root meaning or the wazn of fa'ala. And then also sometimes the context, right? But that's generally what we're dealing with when you're dealing with the wazn of fa'ala. So likewise, yasara, right? Yasara. Yassara, right, means to make easy. Now, sometimes you will not really have you will have really no construction of fa'ala. You might only have a construction for fa'ala, right? Not every verb, right? There's actually more than 10, but there's 10 common ways to inflect the meanings of verbs, right? Fa'ala, 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 af'ala, tafa'ala, tafa'ala, right? In fa'ala, ifta'ala, if'ala, and istaf'ala. These are the 10 most common. There are a few others, but those are the most common. Not every single word will have all 10 inflections. So you take the word laysa. Laysa kamithlihi shay. Laysa means what? No. Generally, it's like to negate something or to say. When we say Allah Ta'ala, what? Laysa kamithlihi shay. Nothing is like Allah. Nothing resembles Him. There's no lassaya or asyala and istal yasa. Like there's no, it's just laysa. Right? So just keep that in mind. Not every single word in the form of a verb will have all 10, right, inflections. Yes. Yes. It's causative, right? Yassara, yassara, we said there's two possibilities. Causative or intensification. The intensification generally only works if there is a first form. So as a causative, yassara means to make something easy, right? But how do you back one step down from that? Like make it easy too, right? It's like, how do you step back from easy, right? So that's why generally you're going to already start with the fa'ala form and it's going to be causative, right? You said what?
You just said
Oh, okay.
You said first form, you're making reference to not first in the sentence, but first as far as the form.
First is the awzan, is the forms, right? Yeah. Now, as we said, this particular noun, yusra, it is ism, but it can also be like sifa. It can be an adjective. So we have yusra. Yusra is actually mu'annath. It's feminine of what? I'll give you the construction first, and then you put it together. So, yusra buniya ala al-wazn fu'la fu'la وهي المؤنث, right? والمذكر, right? The masculine is going to be buniya ala what? Fa'il. Fa'il. Right? So the mudhakkar construction, the masculine construction is going to be what? Buniya ala al-fa'il. So if we take our three essential letters, ya, sin, and ra, and we build it upon fa'il, what do we get? What's the first letter? We know the first letter is a ya. What vowel does it take? What's the first vowel in our construction? What's the second letter in our construction? Great. What does it take in our construction? What's the third letter in our construction? What does it get? What's the last letter in our essential letters? And, right? There, right? So what do we get? Yasir. What are some other words that sound like fa'il? Basir. Now we have basir wal mu'annath. No. Mu'annath buniya ala fu'la. Yes. What's another fa'il construction? Yes. Well, the question is, we don't have to ask if it works. Does it fit the form of fa'il? We have Rahim. What is going to be the fu'ala of Rahim? Not quite, but close. Because our construction is what? Fa, madmuma, ayn, sakin, lam, maftuha, wa alif maqsura. Right? It's this, and this. So we have to take our essential letters of ra, ha, and mim and plug it into this construction, and we get ruhma. What's another, right? How about kabir? What do we get? No. Right, kubra. Kubra. Right? And so, وَيَسَّرَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ لِلْيُسْرَ. Yasara is causative to make easy. وَمَنِ الْفَاعِلْ فِي الْجُمْلَةِ. Who is the actor in this sentence? Who is Ibn Abi Zayd talking about that makes things easier? لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ, for the believers. Who makes things easy for the believers? Allah Ta'ala. So when we say Yassara, al-fa'il mahdhuf, right? This is an important term. We have hadaf, and then we have also mahdoof. Mahdoof means to be omitted. It's not explicitly, it is implicitly mentioned in the sentence. Because he already opened up by stating, Alhamdulillah. All of the other major verbs in the sentence, man al-fa'il, right? Fa'il meaning what? The subject. The fa'il means what? The subject or the actor. So when he says, abrazahu, yassarahu, waffaqahu, because we've explicitly mentioned Allah Ta'ala to begin with, and we go on talking more and more, unless we then at this point, let's say we wanted to say something about the Prophet ﷺ that he did, not something done to him, but the Prophet ﷺ will now become the subject or the actor of some action, we would have to explicitly mention him in that transition, or otherwise we would have no way of knowing. But because we began by explicitly mentioning Allah, and then there's been no other explicit mention of another actor, al-fa'il mahdhuf fi kull al-af'al. Right? The actor then from that point forward is implicitly implied and is omitted. You don't need to keep saying wa abrazahu Allahu, wa waffaqahu Allahu, wa yassarahu Allahu. There's no need. This is what we call usloob. Usloob is like what we call aesthetics or stylistics. In Arabic, we don't like to keep repeating the actor in a statement unless either one, we mention it the first time so we know who we're dealing with, or because we want the actor to be omitted. And therefore, if we've already mentioned the actor once, and we haven't mentioned another actor that's entered into the conversation, so to speak, we will omit him or her from the verb and we'll just use the verb itself. So it's like saying, all praise belongs to Allah, and He, and He, and He, and He. وَمَنْ هُوَ هُوَ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى. We already know who He is. We don't need to keep saying Allah. The only difference would be if you wanted to mention Allah again for what? Ta'keed, for emphasis. And so then also stylistically, right, as you'll see in most of the verbs, you will see in the sentence, you'll have like a fi'l and the fa'il in this order. You have the verb and then the actor. And then after that, you just have verb, 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 verb. If, however, I wanted to make a point, if I wanted to drive home some very important point, again, this is from usloob, I would then what? Ubaddil at-tartib. I would reverse the order and then I would put the fa'il first and then the fi'il. Right? خلق الله السماوات والأرض. خلق الفعل. He created. ومن الفاعل Allah. خلق الله السماوات والأرض. Allah created the heavens and the earth. See, in English, we say Allah created. But in Arabic, we say created Allah. But of course, to make it make sense in English, we have to say Allah created. Right? But if I wanted to, let's say we were talking to an atheist, and I was having a debate, I would say, Allah خلق السماوات والأرض. The meaning is the same. Man al-Khaliq? Allah. Who's the creator? Allah. بس التأكيد في مثل الثاني, right? The emphasis is in the second example I gave, where I put Allah first before the verb. When you put the actor, the fa'al, قبل الفعل, before the verb, then this is usually done either for توضيح, to make clarification, or for, tahqiq, right? Again, for verification, clarification, or for ta'keed, to emphasize. And this is what uslub.
How would you define uslub? Is that just the style?
Stylistics, aesthetics, right? You could call it those things, right? Those are the things that we would refer to it as the stylistics of the Arabic language. Any questions?
Yeah. Back, I had a question about the verb talaba.
Okay.
That wasn't fa'ala is intensification. Could that be partly because that you have to already hit someone or something?
I mean, generally, right. It makes sense because it also would be a little okay. If we take the base meaning of daraba means to hit, if it could be causative, it means that I'm gonna make somebody else do the hitting, which you could say, okay, like my boxing coach makes me hit other people, right? I mean, you could, but it's there could be maybe some bizarre examples or context, but in a general sense, hitting is already, because it's a physical act, generally in the fi jumlat al-'am, right? In the general sense, those types of verbs, al-wazni fa'ala, will be intensifying because it's kinetic, right?
So in a general sense, anything that takes an object.
Like yelling. Well, not just that it takes an object, but also that they tend to be physical acts, like yelling, right? You could, what's above yelling? Screaming, right? So you're already starting with an act, a basic act of yelling, right? But what is less than yelling? No, what's less than yelling? Yeah, like just talking, right? But in reality, is shouting just an intensification of talking? Not really, right? I mean, it is and it isn't. But you wouldn't say like qala or kalima, right? Like to speech and then to yelling. There's not a direct connection between talking and yelling, right? There's not a direct connection. But breaking and shattering, there is a direct connection because you're already kind of in the proximity of that. So this will just kind of come through study and you'll be able to recognize those things. Yeah, so, whereas there is already a connection between yelling and screaming, right? They're both already kind of loud. And so all you're doing is turning the volume from 7 to 10, right? It's already kind of in the neighborhood. It already has a relationship. All right, Robert, let's go on to, actually, no, I don't think we finished our sentence. So you can just read to لِلذِّكْرَى, right? So let's go back to وَيَسَّرَهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. صُدُورَهُم, because it's the direct object is receiving the action of sharaha. What is sharaha? Who knows the surah? أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ وَوَضَعْنَا عَنْكَ وِزْرَكَ. Surah al-Sharh. فَإِنَّ مَا الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَا الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. That's the surah, right? So sharh can have a couple of meanings. And then there is the ism of sharh. So we have sharaha and sharh. Sharaha is a verb. Sharaha means to what? Expand. Expand. Alam nashrah laka sadrak. Allah says to the Prophet ﷺ, didn't we expand your breast? Right? Bi tanzil al-Qur'an, wal nabuwa, wal hidayah. Right? We expanded your heart, your chest. Right? So sharaha itself means to expand. وَالْوَزَنْ فَعَّلَ, we get what? شَرَّحَ, which means to explain something. Because you expand it. You cause something to be expanded. Right? So it's causative, not intensifying. So like for instance, if we said, العالم شرح كتابه للطلاب. شرح العالم. The scholar explained كتابه, his book, للطلاب, for the students. That would be الوزن فعل شرح. But here it's just شرح. And again, من الفاعل في الجملة, who is the actor in the sentence that's doing the شرح? Allah Ta'ala. So he's saying that what? وَشَرَحَ يعني شَرَحَ اللَّهُ صُدُورَهُم. They're receiving the action. So it's the ra and sudur is what? Receiving the direct action. So it's a fatha. But suduru man. Suduru man. Who is the sudur? Who are the chests that are being expanded? Who does he mention right before it? Right, al-mu'mineen. Notice that al-mu'mineen is not mu'minun. Mu'mineen, they are receiving the action of what? Yassara. Allah is making things easy for the believers. So they are mu'mineen instead of mu'minun. And then likewise, their breasts then, if the hearts or the breasts of the believers or if the believers had something done to them, then their breasts are also going to, because what? Their breasts are part of the believers. So they're all going to share in the action. So therefore the verb is going to naturally have to act upon their breasts as well, unless it's describing something else. So sharaha sudurahum. And then what comes right after sudurahum? Right, dhikra. This is another feminine. So we have fu'la. We also have fi'la. So fu'la, we had what? Yusra. And then for fi'la, we have what? Dhikra. So dhikra is another feminine, right? It's a feminine construction. And so what are our essential letters of dhikra? Dal, kaf, and ra. What's the base meaning of that? We know the word. What's the base meaning of dal, kaf, and ra? What do we do after our salah? Right, but what's the word? Yeah, dhikra, and then dhakara. Dhakara can have two meanings as a verb. Dhakara can mean what? You're right, he remembered or to remember. And then also what? To make mention of, right? Now, the dhikra is what? The dhikra is, yani, what? Making, dhikra is different than dhikrullah, right? Right, another word for the Quran is al-dhikra. Al-dhikra is like another word for the Quran. Good, okay, Robert. فآمنوا. So again, lisan, we said lisan, جمعه السينة. So what he says, what فآمنوا بالله B. So B is what kind of, B is a what harf jar. So that means the word that is governed by it is majroor. So it's not going to be al-sina tahum, but it's going to be al-sina tihim. Right, al-sina tihim. So فآمنوا بالله بألسنتهم ناطقين. ناطق. So ناطق. ناطق is just the fa'il, the ism fa'il of what? Oh, God, I can't write today. Where did I put my eraser? Here it is. It is نطق. 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 So ناطق is the fa'il, the ism fa'il of نطق. نطق يعني كلمة أو قال. It means to speak, to utter out loud, to articulate. So وآمنوا بالله بألسنتهم what ناطقين. So there's a component of dhikr and iman and belief that is what? Spoken. What is the most important form of that that is spoken? The shahada. Right? The shahada is said out loud. Okay, great. Wa. Will be, so what is the, right? Breaking it down, we have B. We said this is what? Harf jar. And then we have, and then, right, we got to learn to break it down. So we have B, harf jar, plus qulub, plus So if this makes the rest of it after governed as majroor, that means our last letters are going to have to take what? So we have B, qulu, B, him. What's qulub? Qulub is what? Right, qulub, jama' what? Qalb. So, وبقلوبهم. Go ahead. مخلصين. So, we have here بني على الوزن مفعل. And then, of course, for the plural, we get either una or ina. So, this is a singular noun, mukhlas. Buni ala wazni muf'il. So, if we take this and plug it into our three essential letters of kha, lam, and sin, we get mu, right? Mukhlis. Mukhlis. Yes.
Can you explain more between una versus una?
Yes. Una is rafa. Una is when it is the subject. It's when it's who we're talking about. So first off, what is a mukhlis? Right? Well, I mean, in a sense, right? So a sincere person, a pure, really, actually, really, ikhlas is really closer to like a pure person. Not just sincerity, and we'll talk about why. especially in this context. So when you have una in a sound plural, so we have two kinds of plurals in Arabic. We have, right, jama' sahih and taksir. And I apologize for my horrible writing. Taksir. Taksir, we just got through talking about kassara. Kassara, yukassiru. We said kassara means to what? No. Kassara means to break. Kassara, shatter. Right? What is the masdar of kassara? Tak. Right? Taksir. بني على الوزن تفعيل. We already went through taf'il, right? So taksir is what? Broken or shattered. I mean, in this case, talking about a kind of plural that is a broken, we don't say the shattered plural. I mean, that sounds a little over the top, right? So in a grammatical context, we can just settle ourselves for it's a broken plural, right? But we have two types, right? So in the sound plurals, particularly sound masculine plurals, all we have to do is either add a una or an ina on the end of it. And so, like we say Muslim, Muslimun, right? That's a sound masculine plural. And that's if the Muslims are being discussed or they're doing the action themselves, right? The ina is if they are either majroor, they are somehow being governed by a harf jar, they're being possessed in some kind of way, or they're the direct object. So for instance, if you could say, عند مسلمين Upland, Masjid Jamil. The Muslims of Upland have a beautiful masjid. Because عند is harf jar, right? So the Muslims of Upland, they have, right? So they're being governed by this harf. Or من المسلمين في San Diego أقل منهم من Afghanistan. Some of the Muslims in San Diego are from Afghanistan. So if there's a min, like a harf jar, then they will take the ina. Or I can say, حين or إذا زرت مكة رأيت كثيرا من المسلمين. When I visited Mecca, I saw many Muslims. So if they're the object, or رأيت المسلمين في مكة, I saw the Muslims in Mecca, right? If they're receiving the action directly, then it's also ina. So there's really just two forms that they take, una and ina. Una is the subject, ina is either possessive or the direct object. And so when we have nouns that are constructed upon muf'il, there's so many of them. Muslim, mu'min, muhsin, so many of them. Then to make the sound masculine plural, all we have to do is add the una or ina, depending on its function in the sentence. So when he says, in our statement here by Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, he says what? فَآمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ بِأَلْسِنَتِهِمْ نَاطِقِينَ. Right, that ina is telling what? Sound masculine plural. وَبِقُلُوبِهِمْ مُخْلِصِينَ. Right, so he's talking about the people who are pure. Right, وَبِقُلُوبِهِمْ مُخْلِصِينَ. So what they believed in Allah with what? Their uttering tongues and their pure hearts. Okay, Rob, what's the next part? وَبِمَا. So if you look at the second ta, it has a sukun. No, it has a sukun. Atathum. Right? Bihi.
تَتْهُمْ بِهِ رِسَالَةٌ
رسله well, well, kitab is singular. What's the plural of kitab? Kutub. So, right, kutubuhu. Amilin. So, amil. Amil is that same as natiq. So, natiq is bunya ala wazni fa'il. Where do I keep putting my eraser? I need like 5 erasers. It's like being at home. I can't keep track of anything. Yeah. Yep, just like being at home. So we said the word natiq, as we talked about natiqeen, ناطق ناطق بني على الوزن what فاعل. So if we take fa'il and plug it into noon, ta, and qaf, we get natiq. Likewise, if we have ayn, mim, lam, what does amila as a fi'l, as a verb, what does amila mean? To do, to act, to work, right? So if I want to make fa'il from ayn, mim, and lam, what do I get? Right. I get amil. But if I want to make it jama' sahih, what is it going to be? Right? It's going to be una or ina. Now, how do we know which one is going to be? وَبِمَا أَتَتْهُمْ بِهِ رُسُلُهُ وَكُتُبُهُ عَامِلِينَ. So we got mu'mineen and natiqeen, and now we got amilin. So you can see the pattern, right? So atat. The word is ata, which means to come or arrive, show up, right? To come or arrive. So, وَيَسَّرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ لِلْيُسْرَى. Allah Ta'ala is the one that makes what? Things easy for the believers. وَشَرَحَ صُدُورَهُمْ لِلذِّكْرَى. And He expands their hearts, their breasts, for the remembrance of Him. And as a result of which, that's what the fa, that's how you can understand. So فَآمِنُوا, فَآمَنُوا, the fa there is like saying, and so, or as a result of what came before, آمَنُوا.
Is there a medical term for that fa?
Yes, but I don't want to, I'll give you, I don't want to bog you guys down in too much. Because there's many different types of fa, right? So first, let's just get the meanings, and then we'll get all the istilahat. So, فَآمَنُوا. As a result, what does amana mean? Right. Amana. What does amana mean? First off, what kind of word is it? Fi'l, right? It's a verb. What does it mean? To believe. Bunya ala ma. What is it constructed upon? Well, what are the essential letters of amana? Very good. So we said the form that we worked with before was what? Af'ala. Af'ala, we talked about several other ones that have this form. So if this is the essential words, or letters, alif, mim, nun, and the alif with hamza is added to the form, well, what do you do when you already have an alif in the form? No, there's no shadda in amana. Think about it like math. If you take an alif and an alif, what do you get? Well, what is this? Exactly, yeah, right? What is this? Yeah, but what do we call it? Med, right? Medda. So it becomes alif mamdood. It takes a med. So it's like doing math. Alif plus alif equals a alif with med. Right? And so, what does amina mean in the singular? And I'm sorry, in the wazn of fa'ala. So we have fa'ala, and then we have, actually technically, fa'ila, right? We'll get into more. You can have fa'ala, fa'ila, and fa'ula. We'll get into, there's really no difference, so to speak, in meaning, but just there are three types of voicings for the wazn fa'ala. It's fa'ala, fa'ila, and fa'ula. So an example would be like kabura. Kabura means to be big, right? And so, or to grow. So its fa'ala form is technically fa'ula. Same thing with ilm. To gain knowledge, you have to what? Alima. And then we have Dirāsah, right? They're all the first form. They're all the wazn of fa'ala, but the middle vowel can change to a kasra or even a dhamma. So we have amina. What does amina mean? Amina. To be safe or secure. To be safe or secure. So if we said that the form of aman, of af'ala, can be what? It can be causative or transformative. It means like a person who believes becomes what? A believer. Also, a person that is a believer becomes a Muslim in the Islamic context, right? So, man amana billahi wa rusulihi wa kutubihi wa yawm al-akhiri wa qadrihi fahuwa Muslim. Right? So whoever believes in those things is a Muslim. And so, on the af'ala form, it becomes amana, and therefore we say believer, but see how in English we kind of go to two separate words, safe and believer. I mean, this works in English, but we have to understand is that if you believe in Allah alone, and you believe in His angels and His messengers and His books and in the day of judgment and in His qadr, right? What are you safe from? But did you do that or did Allah make you safe? In fact, can anyone make themselves safe from the fire? No. So, that's why it is a transformative as well as kind of causative form. So, you could say, really, it is what? A safe one. Of course, in English, this sounds bizarre. We are safe ones. Welcome, my safe brothers. Right? Because then they'll say safe. Oh, he means he's the hudud, he's getting out the safe. No, I don't mean that kind of safe. I mean S-A-F-E, not S-A-Y-F, right? So I don't mean that kind of safe, right? Or we're cracking the safe, right? No, to be safe. It is to be made safe. So that's why it is a causative or transformative form. And so Allah says what? وَبِمَا أَتَتْهُمْ بِهِ. And what has come to them by way of him, of what? Two things that he mentions. What's the first one he mentions? What comes right after وَبِمَا أَتَتْهُمْ بِهِ? What's the first thing that he mentions? رُسُلُهُ. Right. So his messengers came to them. What else came to them? The books. And they did what according to those books? Did they just sit around and pontificate? They acted upon them. They are amil. So they believed, and then their actions reflected their beliefs. Right? Okay, Ishaq, take us on the last section of this paragraph. وَتَعَلَّمُوا. وَتَعَلَّمُوا. علمهم. Yep. ووقفوا. That's a verb, so it's not going to be who, it's going to be, right? Just as we said, right? Al-Dallah is also what we have, what? Dalla. So in that case, it's going to be, yep, hadda, good. Lahum, yep. Was. Same thing. Adalla. Amma. There's a shadda. I didn't write it for you, but there's a shadda. Good. Amma alayhim. So let's go back. وَتَعَلَّمُوا. Great. Because in this sentence, we can really see the importance of, right, ishtiqaq, or like how we come up with all these different conjugations. So we have two interrelated. We have our foundational, our huruf al-asliyah, ayn, lam, and mim. The first verb is ta'allama. Ta'allama means what? Right? It's bunya ala al-wazni, right? Ta-fa'. Ta-fa'ala. Ta-fa'ala. And then likewise, we then have allama bunya ala al-wazni fa'ala. So we have ta'allama and allama. So alima, as we said, means what? to know. Alima means to know. Allama as a causative means what? Make somebody else know, right? Or to teach. But then what is ta'allama? What is tafa'ala? Right? As we said in the hadith yesterday, the Prophet ﷺ said what? Al-ilmu bit-ta'allumi wal-fiqhu bit-tafaqquhi. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said what? Al-ilmu bi at-ta'allumi, because of the harf jar, ta'allu, because this is now ism, it's the verbal noun taken from the noun, right? Wal-fiqhu, right? Bi at-tafaqquh. Bit-tafaqquhi. Not yesterday, sorry, Friday. Right? So al-ilmu bit-ta'allumi wal-fiqhu bit-tafaqquhi. So what is ilm and what is fiqh? In the most broad, don't think in the most broad categories possible. No. I mean just like the ma'ana. What is the meaning of ilm? Knowledge. What is the meaning of fiqh? No, in a more broader context. Understanding. Right? Man yuridillahu bihi yufaqqihhu fi din. Whomever Allah khayran, whoever Allah, man yuridillahu bi khayr or khayran yufaqqihhu fi din. Whomever Allah wants good for, He gives that person what? Yufaqqihhu fi din. He gives him comprehension of the religion. Yufaqqihhu fi din. So fiqh means what? Just comprehension, understanding. Right? So, in the broadest sense, ilm is knowledge. And fiqh means understanding. So, the Prophet ﷺ said, knowledge only comes by way of al-ilmu bi at-ta'allumi. Try to think a little bit. What's happening? What does he mean? They both share the same root. Ilm and ta'allum. They have the same ayn, lam, mim. One means knowledge. This is like saying continuous studying or continuous learning. Al-wazn tafa'ala wal-masdar, right? Tafa'ul. So the verbs built on tafa'ala and the nouns derived from them, this is the form of procedure or continuous process. What? It's what? Ladayha bidaya bidun nihaya. It has a beginning that has no end. Right? So it's about a process. Knowledge is only gained through the continuous study of being a lifelong student. Al-ilmu bit-ta'allumi. Wal-fiqhu bit-tafaqquhi. And therefore, to have comprehension, right, which is now you've acquired some facts, but do you understand them, how to implement them? Because when we study fiqh, we study ma ma'ana al-ayah min al-Qur'an. What does the verse in the Qur'an mean? وَمَا أَحْكَامُهَا. What are its rulings? وَمَا مَعْنَا أَقْوَالِ وَأَفْعَالِ النَّبَوِيَّة. What did the Prophet ﷺ say and what did he do? Okay, great. After we have understood those things, now, وَمَا هُوَ عَلَيْنَا. What's upon us to do with those things? What's the implication of those? So fiqh in some ways is what? The implications of knowledge. That's why a lot of fiqh is studying what? Ahkam. Right? Therefore, you cannot really comprehend Islam without what? continuous learning, continuous studying, continuous comprehension, right? Means what? There's no end to it. So likewise, he says, وَتَعَلَّمُوا. Okay, so now we get to a new construction. We said ta'allama is lifelong learning. But what is this that comes after it? What is that waw and that alif? Right? What is that comes after? The waw and the alif. This is the alama. This is the sign of what? A couple things. Mudhakkar, jama', madin. Mudhakkar is what? Mu'annath is what? What is mu'annath? Yeah, so mudhakkar. Right. So the waw and the alif represent masculine. It also represents what? Jama'. Well, no, but grammatically, plural, right? It represents plurality. And then madin, when something is what? You're probably more familiar with what? Madi, but madin, past tense. So it represents these three major things: masculine, plural, and past tense. So, right, so the word is ta'allam, and then we have our waw and alif, right? Those are the huruf za'ida. Those are added to, right? Technically, the ta is also added because that's part of the form. It's not part of the root meaning, right? So we have ta'allama, but then if we want to make it, they did the act of ta'allam, they did the lifelong learning, they are the continuous students as a past tense act. Then we add the waw and the alif. So we go from ta'allama to ta'allamu. 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 Well, yes, jama'. Yeah, I guess you could, yeah. And then the other part of it is third person. But that's sort of implied in the jama', right? So, who knows Surah al-Asr? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal-Asri. Inna al-insana lafi khusrin. Illa alladhina amanu. Right? Illa alladhina amanu. Right? So we said amana means to what? Believe or to be made safe from punishment in the hereafter. And so Allah adds the waw and alif. So illa alladhina amanu. Illa alladhina amanu wa. Right. Amila. Amila means to do what? To act, to do. But Allah adds the waw and the alif. And so we get إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ إلى آخرها. Right? وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا. When you look in your mushaf, you will see after every verb, there's the waw and the alif. That's the sign of these things. Masculine, plural, past tense, third person. In other words, they.
All of those things, masculine, plural, past.
And third person.
All that implies wow.
That's it. Yes. So when he says, وَتَعَلَّمُوا, and they studied, You could even say they diligently studied, because ta'allama is different than simply than to just alima. Alima, they knew. If we said alimu or alamu, they knew it. And therefore, the action is what we say, al-fi'l kamil. Right? The action is done, it's complete. But, right, because it has a beginning and an end. But for tafa'ala, right, there's really no ending. So it's ongoing. But there does have a beginning. And so you can still put it in a past tense voice. So what you're highlighting in that case is, you're highlighting that they did begin. It's implied that obviously there's no end to it, but you are highlighting that they did begin. So what ta'allamu, what does he say? He says what? وَتَعَلَّمُوا مَا. What is the word ma? What? وَتَعَلَّمُوا, and they studied diligently what? عَلَّمَهُمْ. What does allama mean? Darrasa, allama, right? If alima means to know, allama means what? To teach, right? It's the causative. So, they learned what? Allamahum. They learned what he taught them. By way of what are the two things that he mentioned before? Rusuluhu wa kutubuhu. They were students of revelation. Right? Wa ta'allamu. Who is the they in ta'allamu? Who are we talking about that's doing this lifelong studying? The believers. وَيَسَّرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ لِلْيُسْرَى. So again, we don't have to keep mentioning, likewise we said, we don't have to keep mentioning the fa'il. We also don't have to keep mentioning the maf'ul. We don't have to keep mentioning, right, the people that are being talked about. The khabar, we don't have to keep mentioning over and over. Allah has already said what? وَيَسْرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ لِلْيُسْرَى. And then he's going to talk about what? فَآمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ. We already know who did the believing. It's the believers. Right? And that what? They were, who was natiq? The believers. Who was mukhlis? Who was pure? The believers. وَأَتَتْ بِهِمْ. And it caused to come to them. Who's them? The believers. رُسُلُهُ. Whose messengers? Allah's messengers. وَكُتُبُهُ. Whose books? Allah's books. عَامِلِينَ. Who's acting upon that? The believers. You see, this is all hadaf. We don't have to keep mentioning who over. Once it's obvious the first time, then we can mention everything through hadaf. Hadaf, we said what means to omit. And therefore, it becomes implied who we're talking about. We don't have to explicitly mention. It can be implicitly understood through omission. وَبِمَا أَتَتْهُمْ بِهِ رُسُلُهُ وَكُتُبُهُ عَامِلِينَ وَتَعَلَّمُوا مَا عَلَّمَهُمْ وَوَقَفُوا عِنْدَمَا حَدَّ لَهُمْ. Now, وَوَقَفُوا. I wrote down in the fifth little here, it says قَامَ مِنْ جُلُوسٍ قَامَ عَلَى رَجْلَيْنِ. Right? Meaning that what? It's something that can have the meaning of to sit or to stand upon or to stand over. And so what? وَوَقَفُوا عِنْدَمَا حَدَّ لَهُمْ. That they stood upon or they were contented with what? مَا حَدَّ لَهُمْ. What is a hadda? Right? Hadda is a verb. What's another word that has a ha and a dal, or maybe a ha and two dals in it? Hudud. What's hudud? Well, it can be both. You can receive hudud when you do what? Well, or in another way, what? You cross a boundary. Because Allah says what? Tilka hudud Allah. La ta'tadilu, right? These are the boundaries of Allah, like the harrumat. don't cross that boundary. If you cross that boundary, then you get the had. Had is the singular, hudud is the plural, right? But as a verb, hadda, if had or hudud is a boundary or boundaries, then take that in an action mode, make it a verb. Hadda means what? To limit. Who's doing the limiting? Allah. So it says, وَوَقَفُوا, and they stood upon, or they stayed within, عِنْدَمَا, with what? حَدَّلَهُمْ. حَدَّلَ al-mu'mineen, Allah. Right? They limited themselves to not going beyond the boundaries of what Allah drew. وَاسْتَغَنُوا. So, istaghana, do we know the word ghani? Ghani. Right, so it means to be wealthy, to be rich. So, staghna, right? Buniya ala al-wazni istaf'ala. Istaf'ala. So our root letters here are going to be a ghain and a noon and a wow. You'll be a little bit confused because the wow can change its form depending on what's happening to it, right? But those are essentially our three. So we have what? In the plural, we have istaghna. Istaghna. So a lot of times the form of istaf'ala means to try to do something or to endeavor to do something. So when Allah talks about Iblis, when Iblis disobeys Allah, how does he describe him? What is the verb that Allah uses to describe the action of Iblis's arrogance in the Quran? Istakbara. Anybody heard this? Aba wastakbara. Allah says about Iblis, He says he did two things. Aba wastakbara. What are the essential, right, al-huruf al-asliya li istakbara? What are the essential letters in this verb? So, kaf, ba, and ra. We said kabura means what? Well, as an action, it means to what? To increase, to be big, or to grow. The istaf'ala means to attempt to do that. So Iblis, this is from the balagha of the Quran, in that when Iblis refused Allah's command, Allah is so completely in control of everything, even in his or our disobedience. Can Iblis, can he just kabura, can he just increase on his own? Illa bi'ithnillah, right? He cannot do anything unless Allah permits it. Does Allah permit people to obey him? Yes. Does he allow people to disobey him? Bas alaysa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir? Alaysa kadhalik? Is Allah not in control of everything, whether they are obedient or disobedient? If we're obedient to Allah, does this give us power over him? No. If we disobey him, does this give us power over him? are we somehow outside of his jurisdiction? No. So the most that we can really ever do in some ways is what? Istaf'ala. We can make attempts. So when Allah tells them, Isjudu li Adam, bow down to Adam, he what? Aba wastakbara. He refused, but then he tried to get bigger than his britches. He tried to be puffed up. But Allah is the only one that is what? Al-Kabir. Allah is the only one that truthfully is Al-Kabir. He gave it a shot. So even when Allah puts it in the Quran that Iblis disobeys him, he's really saying like, he tried and he's fooling around, and all he's going to do in the end is what? ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. He's going to wrong himself and he will be sent to the fire. So this is an important theological, so to speak, difference between us and the Christians. What do the Christians believe about Iblis? Right, he's an angel and a fallen angel. But what does Allah mention, as we mentioned in Surah At-Tahrim in the khutbah? They're what? In the fire there will be what? Malaika ghilad shadid. The fire will be administrated by angels that are what? Ghilad and shadid. They are terrible and they are harsh. What? La ya'asun Allah bima amrahum yu'marun. That the angels, they do not, first of all, la ya'asun Allah. They don't disobey Allah. So there's no fallen angel. Secondly, they only do, yaf'aluna, right? They only do ma yu'marun, what they've been commanded to do. So angels don't disobey. Ins and jinn can disobey. And even in his or our disobedience, it's just istikbar. It's just istakbar. It was an attempt. It was an attempt to be more than what you are. Now, not every verb that is conjugated upon istaf'ala is blameworthy. Don't get me wrong. In this context, though, that is important to understanding the blameworthy actions of Iblis. He tried, right? But as Ibn Abi Zayd says here, that what? وَاسْتَغْنَوْا. So if we said that ghana means to be rich, then they endeavor to enrich themselves or to be satisfied, right? Because the thing about attaining wealth, true wealth is not merely what? Tajmi' al-fulus wal-amwal. True wealth is not merely the accumulation of things, of money and so on, but real wealth is what? Radwan, being content. And so, they're the ones that did not cross the boundaries that Allah drew. وَاسْتَغَنُوا بِمَا أَحَلَّ لَهُمْ. Ahalla, we already had what? We have dalla and adalla. What about halla wa ahalla? What's a word if you took the essential letters? Yes, halal. So ahalla as a verb means to what? Make something halal or to become halal. So it can be both either causative or kind of transformative. Ya ayyuhan nabi, lima tuharrimu ma ahallallahu lak. So for instance, at the beginning of Surah At-Tahrim, Allah Ta'ala addresses the Prophet ﷺ when his wives had a little incident and he tried to appease them. Allah admonished the Prophet ﷺ by saying, Ya ayyuhan nabi, O Prophet, lima tuharrimu. Why are you making something haram? Ma ahallallahu lak. Something that Allah Ta'ala made halal for you. So ahalla means to make halal. So in this case, وَاسْتَغْنُوا بِمَا أَحَلَّ لَهُمْ. They were satisfied, they were contented to what? With what? بِمَا أَحَلَّ لَهُمْ. What was made halal for them. But who did the making of halal? Allah. So أحل الله what لهم يعني للمؤمنين. And then what did they do with that which Allah made halal? عما عليهم. So they indulged themselves, they enriched themselves, and they were satisfied with the boundaries that Allah drew, being contented not to go to the haram, and they were enriched actually by the halal, right? So وَاسْتَغْنَوْا بِمَا أَحَلَّ لَهُمْ عَمَّا عَلَيْهِمْ. Okay, we'll do the first sentence of Amma Ba'ad with Hussein, and then I'll take you through maybe a few words, and then we'll probably go ahead and wrap because it's after 11. We need to pray Dhuhr. Okay. Amma Ba'adu. أعاننا الله وإياك رعاية ودائعه. That's a tough one. وحفظ ما أودعنا. Yep. شرائعه. شرائعه. Very good. Right? Amma ba'adu. Amma, so one you can write in yourself. There is a shadda there. Amma ba'adu. This is a common phrase you will find in the introduction and the muqaddimah of many works. So when an author starts with the hamd and the thana, he starts with some praise of Allah and some salawat upon the Prophet, whatever. Then when he's going to start to transition to the meat and potatoes of what he really wants to talk about, he or she will say, Amma ba'adu. Amma ba'adu. So ba'ad, what is ba'ad? Like something that comes for after. So it's like saying, and for what follows, and now for what will come after. Right? A'anana Allahu. A'anana Allahu. So, a'anana. Part of what we will work on is being able to recognize and look at words and break them down into their components. So we have the word a'anana. So a'anana. Now, in a'anana, we have, right, we can think of it as chopping off, like right there. Right? So for the last na, right, this na is the na of nahnu. This is the na of nahnu. What's nahnu? No, nahu is grammar. Nahnu is we. Very good. Yeah. Right. So something in this statement is talking about us. A'ana. So our verb then is what? A'ana. We have in Surah Al-Fatiha, just to give, it's not the same construction, but it'll have a similar meaning. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ, right? نَسْتَعِينَ. نَسْتَعِينَ. When we say إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, what is the meaning of that? Yeah, we seek isti'ana, right? What we're asking for is isti'ana. Isti'ana. We're asking for what? Help, right? We're asking for help. So, likewise, this is our root, our huruf, al-asliya, ayn, waw, or maybe in some contexts, some might write it as a ya, and the noon. And so, a'ana is what? Bunya ala al-wazni af'ala. So, we get the ayn is the first, the waw ya become the alif, and the noon is the noon. A'ana. We said that form is causative, transformative. Right? So he's saying, وَأَعَانَ اللَّهُ أَعَانَنَا نَحْنُ. So أَعَانَنَا اللَّهُ. By it being Allahu and not Allahi or Allaha, what's the implication here between the verb of a'ana and the word Allah? We said the Dhamma represents what? The subject, the actor. So who's doing the action of a'ana in this sentence? Yes. Now, as I've said before, when you take, right, when you take a past tense verb, it can become the form of a dua. Right? When we want to make salawat upon the Prophet, what do we say? Right? Sallallahu alayhi wa sallama. Salla and sallama technically are what? Past tense verbs. Like inshallah, if we pray, like if Ruh or Robert came in and they prayed dhuhr, we would say what? Salla Robert al-dhuhr. Robert prayed dhuhr, right? So salla in one context can just refer to a past tense action. But if I want to make a dua, I use it as a past tense verb with the implication that it will happen when? In the future, right? Or, Allah will answer it right now, right? So sallallahu alayhi wa sallama, these are past tense. So a'ana, if a'ana means what? And then we add that to nahnu, and then Allah is the actor, put those together. What's the meaning? Well, not we seek thee. A'anana, nahnu, right? So you're close, but not quite. Think about it if we instead said, A'ana Allahu nahnu. We don't say this in Arabic, it's weird, but just pretend, A'ana Allahu nahnu. When we say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what do we say in English? Or like when somebody dies, we say rahimahu Allah. What? That's radiyallahu anhu. Yeah, but you said, what's the first word you said? May. May is dua in English, right? So we are making what? Talaba. We're making a request. So when we use the past tense verb, we're making a request. We're making a dua. Dua is a kind of request. So, a'anana Allah. May Allah help us. A'anana Allahu wa iyaka. Right? If somebody says, Shukran Ishaq, what do you say? Wa iyaka. What's the meaning of wa iyaka? And the same to you. So, a'an Allahu wa iyaka. May Allah help us and you. So this means that Ibn Abi Zayd is writing to an audience. It's a dua, but he's also addressing somebody else, the reader. He's addressing the reader. So he's making dua for what? Sa'il al-Muslimin, for all of the Muslims, and specifically you, the reader of this risala. أما بعد أعان الله وإياك على رعاية ودائعه. This is an idafa. This is a conjunction, right? And so what do we have here? What is ri'aya? Are you familiar with the term or the hadith? كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول. راع كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول. Anybody heard this hadith before? All of the prophets are described as having been what in terms of a vocation? They're all shepherds. What does the shepherd do? The shepherd. All right, class dismissed, right? Yes, safeguarding. So, the ra'in is a noun, right? Like a shepherd. But ri'aya is shepherding or safeguarding, right? Safeguarding. That is the meaning of that one. Sorry, somebody's.
So you could say it as your protector too, right? So like, I mean, like of the house, I'm your If I say that.
Well, because yeah.
Or my whole
Yes, because Allah, well, actually, not just you, kullukum. The Prophet ﷺ said, every single one of you, who is he addressing? The ummah. Is the ummah comprised of who? Men, women, children. That would be the three main food groups of the ummah, right? And so, قُلْ الرِّجَالِ وَقُلْ النِّسَاءِ وَقُلْ الْأَطْفَالِ رَائِنْ. All of you are shepherds. وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ. All of you are then also have responsibilities, right? And what do you do in that? I mean, what you safeguard, right? So then he continues by saying what? So you're safeguarding what? Wada'ihi. So wada'i from wadi'a. What is a wadi'a? Wada'i jam'u wadi'a. So wada'i jam'a I'm sorry, jam'a wadi'atun. So that is what it is the plural of. Wadi' trusts. So right, he said, Amma abad. As for what follows, A'anallahu wa iyyaka. May Allah Ta'ala aid us and you in the preservation or in the safeguarding of his trusts. رعاية ودائعه وحفظ ما أودعنا من شرائعه, and preserving what he has entrusted us with. From his what? شرائع. What? من شرائعه. Yes. So we can kind of see a pattern. Right? We see a pattern here of plurals. What is the word for Islamic law? Sharia. So we have Sharia and Wadi'a. كلهما بني على الوزن فاعلا. Right? وجمعها is going to be what? فعائل. فعائل. And so Sharia becomes what? Shah. What's the second of what? No. Sharia, take the sheen. The sheen takes what vowel? Sha. What's the next essential letter? Ra. What does it take? And then we have our alif, that is what? The harf za'id. And then we have another harf za'id. We have the hamza with a kasra. And then what's our last essential letter? Right. Gives us shara'i'. Right, shara'i'. Let's do the same. Its first essential letter is waw. حركة فتحة. الثاني دال. وما هي الحركة؟ والحرف التالي والحرف التالي الثاني. وما هي الحركة؟ والحرف الأخير. والكلمة da. Duh. Right? Right? Wada'. Right? This fa'il is a common plural form. That's a common form for plurals. So, when he is saying, right, that he is asking us what? That وَحِفْظُ, sorry, actually is what? أَمَّا بَعْدُ أَعَانَ اللَّهُ وَإِيَّاكَ. May Allah Ta'ala aid us and you عَلَى رِعَايَةِ وَدَائِعِهِ. The he on the end of wada'i' means what? His, right? It was referring to his, safeguarding his trusts. You could think of it when it says وَحِفْظِهِ, you can think of it وَعَلَى حِفْظِ. Right? It's not حَفَظَ, حِفْظِ. Just like we talked about حَذَّف before. حَذَّف means what? To omit. So the harf of ala before ri'ayati wada'ihi, it's going to apply to the word hifz, which means to, right, to preserve. We don't have to keep saying ala. We can just use the waw. This waw is called the waw of atif, but don't worry about the Arabic. It's the waw that carries over the same meaning. So, ala ri'ayati wada'ihi. وحفظ ما أودعنا من شرائعه, and preserving what he has entrusted. أودع is what? أفعل. It's that what? It's that causative kind of form, and the root meaning is to what? To preserve. To entrust. Right? When you make a promise, what do we call this in Arabic? Allah Ta'ala says what? وَعَدُ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. You ever heard this before? The promise of Allah is true. Another way, that's just for wa'ada, right? Wa'ad Allahi, right? This is idafa. Wa'adu Allahi haqqun. But if we wanted to make this causative or transformative as a verb, we take our af'ala form, we got our alif with a hamza, we got our waw, we got our second letter is the ayn, and the last letter is a dal. We have af'ala, so the fa and af'ala takes what haraka? F. What makes the sukun? Ayn, lam, So we go and get what? Ada. Ada. It means to cause somebody to carry the promise that you have given them, or to entrust, right? The simpler translation in English is to entrust, but it is related to promise. Because if I say, look, hey, don't tell anybody this, what am I doing? I'm entrusting you with my secret. It's a trust, right? It's i'wad, right? It's a kind of trust, right? When we make this, hey, you promise me, don't tell anybody, right? So he's saying that وَحِفْظِ مَا أَوْدَعَنَا. Who is it that has entrusted us? مَنْ أَوْدَعَنَا. Allah. مَا أَوْدَعَنَا يعني Allah min شَرَائِعِهِ. شَرَائِعِ Allah. Allah Ta'ala has entrusted us with His Sharia. Allah Ta'ala has entrusted us with His Sharia. So Islam, in many ways, right? Because what is contained in the Sharia? Okay, but Hidayah, guidance. When Allah says, right, أَحَلَّ اللَّهُ شَيْئًا وَحَرَّمَ شَيْئًا هَذِهِ هِدَايَةٌ. When Allah Ta'ala makes something halal or makes something haram, right, it's not just simply a rule, that's the implication. But what is the meaning and the significance of it? It is hidayah, it's guidance, right? So, from aslama, we get Islam. And then if awda'a, we would get what? It would get, the waw becomes a ya, because it would be weird to say aw, but it would be ida, right? So al-Islam, ida'un min Allah wa hidayatuhu. Islam is a trust. Awda'a is to entrust, and therefore its masdar, ida', is to make a trust, right? So the Sharia, while they are indeed rules, but from a higher point of view to look at them, because again, what Ibn Abi Zayd is writing to us and telling us about is to give us tarbiyah, He's instructing us in morality and character and other things. So وَحِفْظِ مَا أَوْدَعَنَا اللَّهُ مِنْ شَرَائِهِ. And so may Allah Ta'ala assist me and you. May Allah Ta'ala assist us and you in the ri'ayati wada'ihi, in the safeguarding of his entrustments and of his deen, and وَحِفْظِ مَا أَوْدَعَنَا, and what he has entrusted us with, min what shara'ihi, from his sharia. So it's a way of having ihtiram, having a sense of veneration for Islam. Any last questions? Because we need to, inshallah, pray dhuhr. But, if anybody, we'll go down the line here. So just start with Dawood.
Just to hear from myself, istifila is attempt or try.
Yes, the form of istaf'ala is generally to try to do something, right? It's to begin in an attempt and, kind of like, inshallah, you get to do it. Hopefully it works, but it's not where the action has a distinct beginning and end.
Like something that's continuous?
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah. So tafa'ala is something that has a distinct beginning, right? But it has no end to it. So it's more of like a process.
So it could be an ing in English.
Right, exactly. Many times it is like, it'll be like an ing or something like that. So lifelong study or studying, right? That kind of, right? And so from tafa'ala, as the verb, you get the masdar of tafa'ul. So the lam in tafa'ala as a verb has a fatha. You want to make it into the kind of infinitive noun, you just change that fatha to a dhamma on the lam. So tafa'ala, tafa'ul. Ta'allama, ta'allum. Tafaqqaha, tafaqquh. Tadarrasa, tadarrus. Right? Ruh, any questions? Huh, okay, all right, inshallah. Oh, okay, all right. No. I was trying to remember though, what was the question you asked me earlier about, it was like a grammatical thing? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll, because again, it's been so much, I feel if I do that, it'll just, I don't want to cram the hard drive anymore at this point. But I'm happy to actually just make it as a footnote, and you guys can see it later, inshallah. Yes?
So I'll go ahead and ask. So in the context, based on the context of which you taught us today, do you have recommendations of how we can exercise those forms?
I mean, yes, what I'll try to do is maybe go through and provide what we went over today, as I'll make a little sheet. And so but basically it's just writing exercises. So make a note of what the base forms are. Fa'ala, tafa'ala, istaf'ala. And then how do I conjugate that to other, like of taking the roots. So if my roots are alima, or amila, or darasa, or kataba, swap them out and then just write those repetitively, that will help. And then likewise for the masadir, right, for the verbal nouns. So for instance, we have istaf'ala, the masdar istif'al, right? So istaqbara, istikbar. So istaqbara is to try to be bigger than what you are. Istikbar is arrogance, but rooted in the idea of it's like trying to be. It's fine to just say it in English like arrogance, right? But you could, let's say I wanted to write a sentence talking about the arrogance of Iblis. And so إن شاء الله اليوم نتكلم عن الموضوع استكباري إبليس الرجيم. So inshallah today we're going to talk about the topic of the arrogance of shaitan. Istikbaru Iblis. So I've now made the verb of istakbara into a noun by calling it istikbar, by adding that extra alif there. So learning the form of the verb and learning the form of the masdar. Likewise, inshallah نتكلم عن الموضوع وأهمية تعلم اللغة العربية. Today we're going to talk about the topic and the importance of learning the Arabic language, studying the Arabic language. That's why it's called what? تيسير تعلم اللغة العربية للدراسة التعبدية. Even in the title of this class is what? The facilitating of the continuous study of the Arabic language. What? For devotional study. So ta'allum. So those things will help by just repetitively kind of doing those exercises. And then hopefully if you have time in your week to also do your regular Quran reading, that you'll begin to pick up some of those clues, as well as any of the other readings that I gave you, right? So I think in the first sheet that I did an audio recording of some of the example sentences. I will try to do the other recording for some of the other ones, so that way also you can go and listen to those. And I've been doing them both as audio files and as YouTube, so you can kind of listen or watch them wherever you are. But yeah, just doing those kinds of exercises. So I'll try to upload a document that will kind of give you the rubric of like, this is how you should work through those exercises to make these forms familiar to you. And in the document that I had printed out for you guys today, if you go to the 7th page, right, it already pulls out some of those vocabulary words. So at the top it says what al-mufradat, the vocabulary words, al-af'alu tujadu fi risala, the verbs that are found in the risala, and then I begin with wazn, fa'ala, that are going to be constructed on that, which is going to be what? Ata, amara, anisa, ja'a, hadda, hafada, hamida, da'a, raja, rasakha, raghiba, sa'ala. Now you'll notice that I did not put them in the order in which they appear in the risala. This is done on purpose because I want you to learn the words and not memorize their occurrence, right? Because I feel that will frustrate you having a deeper understanding of what the words really mean. So they are purposely not put there either in alphabetical order or in order of appearance in the document. And so I made little breaks in them based upon what their wazn is. So if you go to the 9th page, to the bottom, you'll say what wazn, fa'ala. So we have the verb sahala, sallama, salla, sawwara, and on and on and on, as well as the wazn af'ala, right, at the bottom of page 10, of which we have abraza, ajaba, ahalla, ashkara, adalla, and so on, all the way to the very end of it, in which the last form is istaf'ala, and the verbs that appear in there, what istakhara, ista'ana, and istaghna. So I've already broken down some of the vocabulary there in terms of the verbs. I notice I have not done anything quite yet with the nouns. And we'll get to that as we go. And then obviously the video will be uploaded here, and actually as soon as we end, it'll be available online. So you have the entirety of the session today to go back and review. I know it's quite long, right? But nonetheless, it's there for you, inshallah, to review. So I'll have a couple extra documents that I'll send out to you guys. I'm still working, maybe sometime this week when Dawood and I meet up, we've been kind of experimenting with the Discord. So I hope maybe by this week I can kind of get that up and running, so that also we may have some little impromptu sessions where we can hop on and do a quick session and run over a few things. And then you guys can also either shoot your questions in there, discuss with each other, and so on and so forth. So.
Share with all the PDFs of,
So I am uploading all of the PDFs to the website, and that's broken down by session. So there's session 1, and all the PDFs there. Session 2, all the PDFs there. If you want something else to use, yeah, I'm sure I can, just use Google Drive or something like that.
Oh, but you can put it in Discord. There could be a.
Oh, is there a repository you
Yeah,
can make to put
yeah,
things in there too?
Yeah, there might. No, you
Okay.
can make a whole other area.
Okay, inshallah. So yeah, inshallah we can arrange to have those things made. But at least the website will kind of have like the master overlay that's also broken down by every week. So you kind of know, okay, this is what we covered this week. It'll have all the links to the things you need, like to the videos, to the audio files, to the things like that, as well as a few other supplementary things. So you can check back on the link there on the website, and I'll constantly update that as I go as well. And then I'll send out the emails and the WhatsApp announcements.
I do have a question, but it's more or less to satisfy my curiosity.
Okay.
What would be the true meaning of mu'min?
So what's interesting is about mu'min, and of course, so mu'min, all right, we'll give you like a little teaser trailer here now that we're at the very end to completely smash your mind. So the verb amana, its ism fa'il is mu'min, with the kasra on the meme in mu'min. Then we have also the ism maf'ul would be mu'man with a fatha on them. So what would kind of be, I had actually put together something here I was going to make as a handout to give you, but since you've asked for it, then, so for instance, you could say, for instance, the mu'min is the one who is safeguarded. And I mean is as active. So the mu'min is the one who is safeguarded and is still continuously doing the action of amana. So al-mu'min huwa yu'minu billah. أو mu'min huwa amana billah. The mu'min is the one who believes or has believed in Allah. And so you could say, for instance, for the mu'min, right, huwa shakhsun mu'manun li'annahu sadiq. He is a trustworthy person. He is a person that can be believed. Like لِأَنَّهُ صَادِق, because he's truthful, right? So al-mu'min huwa mu'manun لِأَنَّهُ صَادِق. The mu'min is a believer because he is somebody that has been made safe by his trustworthy actions. So he can be believed, right? And so he is the one that is, right, that is safe. And so that would be, you could say, getting to the deeper meaning, right? So like, man al-mu'min, who is the mu'min, right? Al-mu'min man yu'minu billahi wahda wa bima anzala fi kitabihi al-mubin wa bima arsala ma'a rasulihi al-amin فأثرا لذلك مكانه في الجنة مؤمن. So who is a believer? The believer is what? Man yu'minu billah. The believer is the one who believes in Allah, I mean right now. Wahda, alone. وَبِمَا أَنزَلَ يعني أنزل الله في كتابه. And believes in what Allah revealed in His book, al-Mubin, His clear book. وَبِمَا أَرْسَلَ مَعَ رَسُولِهِ الْأَمِينَ. And believes in what? What was sent with His Prophet ﷺ, the trustworthy one. فَأَثَرًا لِذَلِكَ. So as a result of that, مكانه في الجنة, his place in Jannah is what? Mu'min, secured. So the mu'min secures and the mu'min is secured. One is active, one is passive. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. Right? And so I actually I was preparing this yesterday, but I wasn't going to do it today because I didn't want to confuse you. But I'll have a whole set of examples and scenarios to show you the difference between the fa'al and the maf'ul and the fa'il and the majhul, or the ma'lum and the majhul, like between the active and the passive. These are very important. These are very, very important modes that we need to understand in grammar. When, like, not only what does it mean for something to be active and passive, but what is the implication when something is active and passive, and where is the emphasis placed when something is active and passive, right? So that's getting a little bit ahead, but that's why I have the notes right here. And so you could think of things like like to be written or to be believed, or like when we could say like ad-dars mu'allam, not mu'allim, ana al-mu'allim, right? I'm the teacher of this class. Walakin ad-dars, the lesson, huwa mu'allam. The lesson was taught, right? Of course, like you will find that when it comes to these inflections, right, mu'allam is really, I mean, it's grammatically correct, but very, very seldomly used, because it's just, you would rather just say talib or muta'allim, like he's a person that is educated, right, versus mu'allam. I mean, if you want to make a point of something, sure, but it sounds kind of odd to say in the Arabic mu'allam. So the mu'allam refers to something that has been taught. So it's passive, has been, right? Versus mu'allim, it's active. I am a teacher. Ana mu'allim al-Lughah al-ʿArabiyyah. I am an Arabic language teacher, right? So it implies something that is done actively. But again, you asked for it, so I gave it to you, but I don't want to confuse you any more than what is necessary. But as we get there, you will, and again, I have a whole, trust me, I got a massive Google Doc with tons of examples written out to help illustrate, like you said, man al-mu'min. Al-mu'min yu'minu billahi wahda. وَبِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فِي كِتَابِهِ الْمُبِينِ وَمَا أَرْسَلَ مَعَ رُسُولِهِ الْأَمِينِ فَمَا كَانَهُ فِي الْجَنَّةِ مُؤْمَنًا. Like I have all kinds of examples that would use amana, mu'min, and mu'man, and yu'min, and amana. Yeah, I have a whole thing where it's like a kind of shake and bake, mix it all up, and you will see how their inflections stand out from one another to learn, oh, okay, that's kind of the mechanics how it works.
No, the reason I asked is when you said that the mu'min is safe, it implies that.
Because, so amina means to be safe. The fa'ala, or fa'ila, right? Amina means to be safe. Amana means to be made safe, or to make something safe. And so the mu'min is the one that makes safe. This is why one of Allah's names is what? Al-Mu'min. What? Allah is not the believer. He is the safe maker. He is the only one that can grant safety. Exactly. Iman is like saying security. We call it faith, but the result, again, see the problem in English, we have what? Believer, and we have security, and we have to hop around to a bunch of words in English that do not immediately have the same etymological relationship, where in Arabic they all do.
Right, but then, the English is somehow insufficient, because it doesn't.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why, it's like you can articulate this in English, but it will require a great many more words. I cannot just say amana, mu'min, and mu'man, and iman, and then use those. I cannot explain that meaning in 4 words in English. I can say those 4 words in Arabic, but I cannot explain those 4 words in English. And the reverse is true. There are words in English, if I took 4 words in English, I probably can't explain them in 4 words in Arabic. So you go from kalima to faqara. You go from like a word to maybe a paragraph that's required to make that meaning intelligible. And so that's why it is important to study the Arabic, because you'll want to eventually begin to do the mechanics of your thinking within the Arabic language itself. And you will see how those differences will have they will stand out in stark relief from the background. Like I said, you have hakam means to rule. Hukum is a rule. Ahkam is the plural of hukum, right? Ihkam is rulings. And then what? Hikmah, wisdom. Why we gotta go to wisdom? But is not hikmah the masdar of hakuma? It is. And so when we say Allah is wise, no, this is insufficient. Because when Allah talks about that He is al-Hakim, it doesn't mean that He is wise. It means that Allah Ta'ala is what? Fa'il, Hakim. And what? It's something He's doing all the time. It's like saying He is Hakam. It's like He always is in control and runs the show. Top to bottom, left to right, in and out, all the time. Min awa'ilihi ila awakhirihi. Right? From the beginning to the end. But this is not immediately apparent when you say hikmah or hakim and wisdom and wise. He's the one that what? He is batha fil ummiyina rasulan, what? Yutla alayhim ayatihi, that He sent the Prophet ﷺ to the people of Mecca. And the first thing He did is what? He recited the Quran to them. وَعَلَّمَهُمْ, right? He taught them what? The book. And then also what? The hikmah. عَلَّمَهُمُ الْكِتَابُ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, right? He's the one, what? He taught them knowledge and then wisdom? No, He taught them knowledge, وَالتَّطْبِيقِ الْعُلُومِ. He taught them the application, and on top of it, the Prophet ﷺ, as being the one that came to teach them hikmah, it means that the Prophet ﷺ is authoritative. Right? That the Prophet ﷺ is also a source of rulership in Islam, and what he says and does is authoritative upon us. But if you use the word wisdom, this does not become immediately clear. But I don't want to make this into another khutbah, inshallah. We should make wudu and pray, whoever needs to. وصلوات الله تعالى على النبي الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.